Hello everyone, welcome to my Resident Evil 6, no hope difficulty, no life cube lost walkthrough. And this is chapter 5 of Leon's campaign, the final chapter, and it goes all out, let me tell you. The boss fights are a lot of fun, there's a lot of Resident Evil mechanics utilized in this particular chapter. And I just like this chapter, I think this is one of my favorite chapters of the game. Even if you're not fighting a lot of enemies, you're just fighting zombies, and then you're fighting different forms of Derek, and that's it. But for what it is, I think it's just something you gotta get over.
Okay. What's it like?
And just enjoy it for what it is.
All I can see is a shit.
Now, this part here,
I don't think that's the half.
you need to escape the gas. The gas is gonna break through the glass right there, and then a bunch of zombies will follow you as well. All you gotta do is just wait for this BSAA soldier to open the door for you. You'll see me trying to deal with some of the zombies. It's not because I just have that urge to kill them. It's just literally for S rank purposes. Because I am trying to go for S rank on this run. And I see no other reason to kill these zombies other than that. Like, there's no point. There's literally no point. And I just feel like it just drags the gameplay out. It just drags the section out when you're just trying to waste time trying to kill enemies for a simple S rank. It's definitely one of the main reasons why I don't like kill all runs. Kill all runs in general are just very boring unless the game is just designed around killing all the enemies, and then the game's mechanics are actually a lot of fun to experiment with. And that's why I'm not going to waste time killing all the enemies in Resident Evil 6. It literally just turns the game into a slogfest. That's all it is. Like, all you're doing is just dragging the game out and making it seem like this game is just nothing more than a chore. And that's exactly what I felt doing a kill-all run of Resident Evil 2 Remake, because I did a kill-all run of Leon A. And I did it successfully, and then I tried to do the same for Claire A, and I just got so bored. Like, the whole time I was doing that kill-all run of Resident Evil 2 Remake on Leon A, I was just so bored out of my mind. Like, it made an already underwhelming game feel even more underwhelming, with just seeing the simple enemy behavior and just the dragged-out scenarios. And I just deleted my Claire A run. It wasn't because I died. It wasn't because I missed this one enemy type in my kill-all run. It was literally because I was so bored out of my mind, I thought I would just go insane just doing this, and that's why I deleted my run entirely. Like, whoever thinks this is appealing, I don't know why you think that. Like, there's nothing appealing about trying to kill all the enemies. Like, I'm not about to stay in an area for half an hour in Chapter 1 of Jake's campaign, for instance, trying to pick off the guys on the turrets. Like, it screws with the pacing of the game, and when a restricted run breaks the game in a way similar to that, like, that's hardly what I would consider a proper restricted run. Like, is that really someone's definition of fun? Like, if so, that person needs to get a life if they think standing around, sitting on their asses, twiddling their thumbs, or the like, just waiting to pick off some random dude that means nothing is fun. Like, that is not what the developer of this game designed it for. And I know someone's going to make the argument of, oh, it's an action game, you're supposed to kill everything. If you seriously think that, then either you're severely out of touch with the gaming generation, or you simply have the mind of a second grader, which in this case is taking everything at face value without thought, just like the members of the stupid Resident Evil community who judge Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6 based on the most superficial aspects. Like, that has to be one of the most crass statements I've ever heard from a certain individual. Like, you can't seriously believe that running around in circles doing nothing, just waiting for an enemy to show itself, is what the game is about. And there are people that seem to think that killing everything in a game makes you amazing and special. But if you ask me, as being someone more in tune with the gaming generation, I say that person has an inflated ego if they think playing the game like that shows the game at its best. Like, every single time I watch such runs, I get bored out of my mind, and I just leave the stream as the gameplay that's shown is always so repetitive. Is that really how you want to show a game? Like, Resident Evil 6 already receives enough flack as it does, but doing such runs only exacerbates such flack, and gives people more reason to not like the game. Like, I had already made this statement in my Resident Evil 4 walkthrough. And, like, that's all I'm going to say about that particular tangent. Because there's literally no point in dwelling on it. And that's why I left in that whole moment where you're in the truck, and you're just driving through that ruined city, because you're not doing anything, and the section lasts just long enough for me to make this statement about kill-all runs and why I just hate them, and why I consider them to be so pointless and unimportant and not fun whatsoever. And whoever thinks that is fun, just open your mind for crying out loud if you think that's fun. But after that section, I'm still killing a bunch of the zombies. You can just choose to run past them if you want to, if you're not gonna try to kill all the enemies.
Leon, do you hear me?
But I'm happy to do so just to get the S rank. And this is actually the tutorial area, only you're not having to drag Helena along because she's injured. Helena's perfectly fine. And then the chopper's not shooting at you. It's actually Ada in the chopper who's actually helping you out. And then this guy doesn't try to do this whole fancy cutscene of just grabbing you and you have to kill him. He's just a normal zombie. There is a green herb inside of this BSAA truck, but there's no point in getting it because this is a no life cube loss walkthrough. And then this part coming up, I didn't have a remote bomb for this section, but I'm about to show you one of the coolest mechanics of Resident Evil 6. It's basically shooting the enemy in the leg and they fall over. Only on this game, they've expanded upon that mechanic because with the zombies, if they try to run over anyone who's been knocked over, they themselves get knocked back. Like, watch. See? I just stopped that whole horde from running. That right there is one of the coolest design choices in this game. And it only works with the zombies because, of course, they're brain dead. So, obviously, they don't think twice about what they're stepping over. And that's why it doesn't work with the Juavo. Like, there are certain people who don't like this mechanic. Like, one of my friends says he doesn't like the mechanic because it screws with his ability to do mercenaries. That's hardly what I would consider an objective statement when it comes to critiquing a mechanic that is as useful as that. Just because it screws with your performance on mercenaries mode does not make it a bad mode. Like, judging it based on a mini-game mode rather than based on a campaign, like, that argument doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And this whole mechanic of enemies tripping over bodies is in Resident Evil 2 Remake, only it is so useless on that game because it just doesn't work consistently. I had found a potential method in Resident Evil 2 Remake of being able to knock over enemies using the bodies, but unfortunately, it just doesn't work because everything on that game mechanically is just percentage based when it comes to unique mechanics like that with enemies tripping over bodies. Like, can you imagine that Resident Evil 2 Remake had the ability to strategically use bodies as a way of knocking over zombies and then you can just finish them off with the knife? Like, that would be so cool. Like, the knife already has a durability system and your guns have ammo. Like, is it really that much of an advantage if you're having to rely upon weapons that have limited capacities or limited durability? I don't see why that mechanic wouldn't exist. Like, if that mechanic existed, that would actually make a lot of sense. I mean, we're talking about brain-dead zombies for crying out loud. Of course you're gonna fall over bodies, but don't make it a percentage-based system. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, for instance, with the staircases, like, zombies can somehow move faster than you on staircases. The characters are having to check where they're stepping when they're on the staircase. Like, they move slower on staircases. But why do zombies move just as fast when they do their running grab on staircases? Like, it doesn't make any sense in the slightest. And before you make the argument of, oh, it'd be too powerful, look at the other Resident Evil games, for instance. In Code Veronica, you could knife zombies while they were climbing staircases or descending staircases, and they couldn't do anything. In Resident Evil 1 Remake, you could use staircases to your advantage to get zombies to do nothing but vomiting. And those are games that people consider to be true Resident Evil games, so why would it be a problem in this game? And plus, you're not using such a system to your advantage because there's barely any staircases in Code Veronica and Resident Evil 1 Remake that are actually advantageous. And the same case with Resident Evil 2 Remake, you're not using a lot of staircases to your advantage. And you're barely encountering enemies on staircases as it is. So, like, they could have had the mechanic exist, but just not to such a great degree because there's barely any staircases in Resident Evil 2 Remake. Like, the only staircases that are worth noting are just that staircase in the RPD building, the one inside the sewer area, and then the one in the lab. Those are the only staircases that I remember as being important, this and that. It's those kind of mechanics that I feel like would have made Resident Evil 2 Remake feel more like a Resident Evil game, because Resident Evil is all about the unique mechanics. It's all about making the survival horror experience feel not only tense, but lethal and fair, and also realistic. We're talking about brain-dead zombies again. Like, I just already mentioned this. We're talking about brain-dead zombies. You think they're gonna be checking their footing? You think they're just gonna completely ignore the fact that they're on a staircase when they're just doing their grabs? I just don't understand. Like, Resident Evil 2 Remake takes so many artificial handicaps when it comes to its enemies. Like, another great example of this is with Mr. X. Like, Mr. X, he doesn't kill enemies. All he does is just shove them aside, and he's such a baby when he does it. He's such a toddler compared to Nemesis. Nemesis could actually kill zombies. And I said in my first impressions of Mr. X when I saw the first video on him, it'd be really cool if Mr. X could actually kill the zombies. That way there's actual strategy involved, and, you know, trying to do the strategy could possibly put you at risk. But again, like, people were like, oh, it'd be too advantageous, this and that. Well, I told Seraph17 about my thoughts on this, and I asked him, how would you counter this argument? And he said, oh, it's a very tricky thing to counter, but I think a really cool design would be make it so that Mr. X can kill enemies, but his damage would actually increase every single time he killed a zombie. Like, he could instantly kill you if he grabbed you or he punched you. I think that would just be a perfect balance. Like, you're getting this advantage, but Mr. X is also getting this advantage.
Yeah.
You know, we believe in an eye for an eye. Like, Seraph17 came up with such a cool idea, but unfortunately Capcom didn't have the same mindset when it came to such things. And they just instead made Mr. X an omniscient AI who can't kill enemies. He just shoves them aside as if he's a school bully. He's a freaking BOW and he shoves them aside like he's a school bully. Talk about underpowered. But enough about my my tangents. We're on this boss fight against Derek, which is a lot of fun. Seraph17, for some reason he took like 14 minutes to do this fight. I don't know if his health was different when the game first launched and then they patched it, or maybe that Seraph17 just wasn't being so active when it came to attacking Derek. But what I can say for sure is that it did not take me 14 minutes to do this fight. It took me 6 minutes, and that's including the little turret sequence where you're with the BSAA soldiers. Like, minus that turret sequence, I would say it took me about 5 minutes just to do this whole entire fight. Like, this fight is a lot of fun, and Derek actually gets stunned very consistently by the barrels. I mean, it's only on the first roll. The second barrel, he doesn't get stunned, but then the other barrels, he actually does get stunned, and then there's a lot of environmental stuff you can do against Derek. Like, he can actually bite that gas tanker, and it drops gas, and then you can actually shoot it, and it stuns him. So, the way Derek works is you can either use the barrels against him to get him back to his human form, or you can shoot his back, or the eyeball inside of his mouth. And if you deal enough damage to Derek, he will eventually return to his human state. But it has to do this one right here after you stun Derek for the first time. And you're not actually doing any damage to Derek in this part. This is just a little cinematic moment, just to add to the fight. But you can still die in it if you're not actively shooting Derek. This part here, I don't think it matters if you shoot Derek or not. I mean, I could be wrong, but because right there he did get stunned. So I think you have to actually shoot Derek in that part if you want to stay alive. And the turrets have a overheating function, so you gotta kind of fire the turrets not too much, otherwise they will overheat. And this moment you have to shoot Derek, otherwise he'll kill you. I've never failed this sequence ever. I mean, I'd have to know if it is possible to fail this sequence. And here's some more cinematic stuff. At least this time we're not getting screwed by enemies moving during the cutscenes, because we're only fighting Derek. It looks like a really cool fight. He's easily one of the biggest bosses ever encountered in the Resident Evil series. But Derek has finally destroyed the Jeep as well as the BSAA soldiers, and now we have to fight him again. And this time he's a lot more pissed off this time. Obviously with Derek, you don't want to get close to him. He's very dangerous because he's a very big boss. And once again, use the barrels on him, shoot his back, and then shoot his eyeball. Something you need to note, whenever Derek tries to roar, he's always going to make you flinch. But to make the flinch animation take less time, lie down on the ground. Because when he roars, he's going to instead knock you back. And if you're still aiming, you'll recover from the animation very fast. And he always roars after you do those cute quick-time event sequences where you're just punching him. So right here, I'm just lying down on the ground, he's going to roar. And I just recover from the animation very fast. So try to locate some more barrels. The barrels are always in the same exact places. That attack right there is very dangerous. You can dodge it with the quick-time event, but even if you do dodge it with the quick-time event, because he's directly on top of you, he's just going to do damage the moment you come out of the animation. So that's definitely the one cheap thing about Derek. But just deal with it. Just don't get close to him whatsoever. Now, I know this whole system of just using the barrels against him may seem like a very simple model. I know one of my friends feels that way, but if you're going to critique this fight based on that, then you're going to have to critique Usanok on that as well, because Usanok, a lot of his fights work the exact same way, where you have to use barrels against him in order to actually do damage to him, or just a lot of damage to him. So you can't really make that same argument here, because if you make the same argument with Usanok, then you have to unfortunately give the same exact negatives to Usanok. But so that's why I don't give any negatives to this fight when it comes to just using the barrels, because then I have to do the same with Usanok. And there's just enough to this fight to make it interesting that I don't care that I'm just using barrels against him, and that's it. And again, like, he dies very fast. This is roughly a 6-minute fight if you're including the whole turret moment. And speaking of turrets, there is an actual turret you can actually use in this room, but I don't recommend using it. It doesn't really do a lot of damage to Derek. I mean, you definitely want to use it, mainly when he's far enough away from the turret, because he will prioritize you the moment you get on the turret, and he will destroy it. So a couple of things that Derek can do in this fight: he can throw cars at you, he can throw trucks at you, and he can also knock over large vehicles on top of you. Like, there's a bus inside of this room here, and if you're on the other side of where he is, he'll knock down the bus on top of you, and it will instantly kill you. A lot of the attacks that Derek can do will just instantly down you, but thankfully he's a very fair boss. And I recommend using the shotgun against him, because the shotgun has a lot of range, more so than you'd actually think. And the spread isn't so much, thankfully. The spread is largely compressed, so you can hit his back very consistently. But I'm just gonna use the pistol on him. I'm gonna use the actually, no, I'm not going to use the machine gun. I'm just finishing him off with the pistol right now, because this is actually near the end of the fight right now. And thankfully, you don't have to use all the barrels in this room. And he's dead. Or not dead, he's just incapacitated, rather, because he's going to come back. Yeah, you have to fight Derek like 3 more times. Rather, actually, 4 more times. And then we're doing this whole moment right now, where we're just doing the kunai climb mechanic. And you're not really in any danger, thankfully. I mean, I imagine originally at launch, this would be a pain to do, because doing these kunai climb moments on launch was really bad, because of the way the inputs registered. But now they've actually fixed the issues with the inputs. The kunai climb moments are just distractions. That's really all they are. And they just provide some interesting cinematography. And as you can see, Ada is encountering Derek right now. This is actually Ada's final boss. This is actually the final boss of Ada's campaign. At least it's... I mean, it sucks that it's not a unique final boss, but it's still a very fun fight either way. But right here, you have to shoot Derek to speed up the fight. That way, you'll actually progress the sequence. I don't think you have to shoot Derek too much. I'm not too sure how this sequence works. I don't know if it's a time-based sequence or a damage-based sequence. But obviously the important thing to note is that the zombies will spawn behind you, because they will drop on top of you. And they will drop rifle ammo, thankfully, so just use the rifle ammo on him. Never shoot Derek when he's transforming. I believe he's invulnerable while he's transforming. Just shoot him when he's in a neutral state of attacking. And thankfully the AI really helps out here. She does a lot of damage to Derek. Despite this, however, I'm still going to speed up the video by about 4 times speed, just to make this about 10 seconds, because you're not really doing anything. You're just waiting until the cutscene triggers, and the only threat to yourself is just the zombies that spawn behind you. But that's the end of that. And now we're back on the kunai climb sequence, and this particular kunai climb sequence, if Leon moves too fast, he'll knock off Helena, and then he'll have to do this cutscene every single time. So that can be very annoying. If you're playing on co-op, you have to wait for Helena to move a little far ahead before actually moving up. And then right here, Derek's going to attack you. Leon can counter, but mainly Ada will just keep Derek off of you, and she's very good at keeping Derek off of you. And thankfully though, when you're playing as Ada, you don't have to protect Leon whatsoever. Leon just does this entire sequence by himself. But now Derek has shifted his attention to Ada, and now Leon has to save her. And this definitely brings up an intimate moment between the two characters, because this intimate relationship between Leon and Ada is something that has been in Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4, and it's the same case in Resident Evil 6. Now, I'm just glad it's not like a typical husband and wife relationship, this and that, just that typical cliched thing. And you know, a lot of people have been wanting characters like Leon and Claire to get married with each other, but that would just completely destroy the relationship between the two characters. You know, they're friends, but if you just turn their relationship into just the stereotypical husband and wife relationship that everyone is just expecting, then that relationship really has no meaning. Like, the whole charm of Leon and Ada's relationship is that they have this care for each other, but at the same time, Ada's using Leon. That's her character. That's how she is, and I just like the fact that they haven't tried to go all out with just saying, oh, they're gonna get married in this next Resident Evil game. They're still gonna maintain this, and I just like that between these two characters. But now we're fighting Derek. We're actually fighting his turret form again. This was back in the train level, but we're actually getting an actual fight this time. And it's very easy. The only hard part about this sequence is the zombies, because you have to watch your back when it comes to the zombies. There's a lot of zombies that appear on the sequence. And if you stand at a distance to Derek, he likes to use his charge attack a lot, and you can just dodge it. He also has a turret attack that you can dodge, which is this move right here. And he can damage other zombies as well. And then also shoot his heart. Again, the heart is the exact same weak spot. And when Derek walks towards you, you're going to see it in a moment. Yeah, he's walking towards you right now. This is a counter right here. He'll always do this attack. This is an attack that Serpent17, for the life of him, could not counter. The counter prompt even appeared on his screen, and yet somehow he wasn't going for it. And then he was complaining about that move all the time, which I don't understand. Like, that move is properly telegraphed. He always walks towards you, and then he does the attack. So yeah, just counter that move if you just see him walking. The counter that Leon does is a lot better because he's not pulling himself towards Derek. The counter that Ada does is horrible because she puts herself so close to Derek that running away from him can be very dangerous. So my best recommendation is to show caution when you're countering Derek's grab attack as Ada. When you're countering him as Leon, you're perfectly fine, but countering him as Ada is very dangerous. And Derek is going to go down so fast now that I have access to all my tools. And once again, I'm using the machine gun against him, because the machine gun's very good. You definitely want to use the sniper rifle as well, so that you can hit his weak spot. And the charge attack is really the one move he can do at a distance. And be very careful with some of Derek's hitboxes when you're close to him. Because the whole animation he does where he turns around, or when he just places his legs down after an attack, such as this, where he just places his legs down, they have a hitbox. So if he touches you, he will do damage to you. So you gotta be very careful with that. If you're trying to do knife only against Simmons, which I managed to do, you can stay behind him, because Derek mainly tries to do his quick turn attack, and you can easily dodge it. And I'll probably post the link to my knife only strategy against him in this video if you want to check it out, because it's very handy. I mean, it's not necessary, because finishing him off with all of your tools combined definitely speeds up the fight, but doing a knife only can be a lot of fun. You know, using the knife for very specific moments is far better than using the knife all the time, because then the gameplay doesn't feel so repetitive, and you really get to see the knife's true potential in action. But Derek's near death, and if you're wondering, when Derek just transforms by himself, like, you're not forcing him to transform, he's gonna always taunt, and I believe he's invulnerable while he's taunting. But the good news is that when he taunts, it means he's signaling that he's very close to death, or to the end of this fight. And right here, you're not gonna be doing anything. Ada has to save you, just like she has saved Leon all those other times, like for instance in Resident Evil 2, with giving Leon the rocket launcher, and then in Resident Evil 4, with saving Leon from Krauser, and then Resident Evil Damnation, where she saved Leon from the self-destruct sequence. She's just doing her classic thing of saving Leon all the time. I like that duality in their character. She's practically Leon's guardian angel, but she's also using him for her purposes. I wonder if we'll see Ada again, because, I mean, her role in Resident Evil 2 Remake just feels very limited. Like, you barely get to play as her. Which is one of the most disappointing things about Resident Evil 2 Remake. Like, playing as the side characters is so boring in Resident Evil 2 Remake. And that's definitely something I'm going to critique when I do my Resident Evil 7 versus Resident Evil 2 Remake video series. But at this part right here, wait until Derek attacks and then just get behind him. This is not a tricky fight. It's there to give you the impression that it's difficult, but it actually isn't. And I guess the whole point of that fight is to give you delusions of grandeur, thinking that Derek's going to be so easy to take down. But it actually isn't going to be the case, and Derek is going to assume his final form in a moment. And I like the little foreshadowing that the game does, because you actually see a bunch of flies buzzing around him when you actually finish him off, and then all the zombies are just biting him, so obviously he's going to assume his more mutated status. And I don't know exactly why the zombies choose to bite Derek, because I mean he's affected by the C virus just like them. So I don't know why they decided to just turn their backs on Derek. That just seems a little odd to me. But let's not dwell on it. So right here, you're gonna get a lot of Magnum ammo. And then you're gonna need to boost Helena over this crane. And then Derek is going to separate you.
Up you go.
He's going to cause Leon to fall down onto the platform below. And you have to hold him off while Helena tries to save you. And the AI is so good at helping you out. Even though she has a bunch of zombies coming after her, the AI just breezes right past them. Playing as Helena in this part can be pretty annoying because you have to deal with a bunch of zombies. This part here, don't shoot Derek, just dodge his projectile attacks, but look at this. The AI has already done the quick time event sequence that allows me to move on. But when Derek decides to come over here, the AI has to do the quick time event sequence again, but again, it's not a problem for the AI. They have no trouble doing this sequence. So we're just waiting. Stand on this part of the platform, because Simmons tends to miss a lot of the times with his projectiles. And he's coming over right now. And you can bypass the flinch animation that he does by jumping backwards, like this. There you go. And now you have to maintain continuous fire on Derek. You don't have to do it too much, thankfully. I think you have to stun Derek at least 1 or 2 times after Helena does the quick time event sequence. And then you can just proceed to stop firing at Derek and the sequence will be over. But what I'm doing here is I'm doing the shoulder swapping trick to fire the shotgun faster. It may not seem like it, but for some reason, when you swap shoulders, the camera doesn't adjust as well in this sequence. I'm just using the shotgun here because I have a lot of shotgun rounds, and the shotgun's not going to be that useful for the final phase. And the sequence will be over now. And be very careful here. The zombies are moving during this cutscene, but they're all prioritizing Helena right now. And as you can see, look at that. That's pretty cheap, but thankfully they're all prioritizing Helena. And I'm just going to kill off these zombies right here to contribute to my rank, and also utilize some of the context-sensitive melee attacks. Here comes some more. The zombies aren't infinite, thankfully. There's only about 7 zombies that will come after you. And right here, I just marked that guy. If you press circle while you're aiming at an enemy, you'll mark the enemy. It only works on one enemy. You cannot mark multiple enemies at the same time. And the reason why it's there is to get your AI to attack that particular enemy. On co-op, you're just using it as a way to indicate where that enemy is. But something important to note about that, Fascinator showed this this method of allowing the AI to participate in combo attacks. If you mark an enemy, and then you initiate a soft stun, the AI will start a combo attack with you, because she will actually go towards the enemy that was marked, and then attack them to initiate another soft stun that puts them into the coup de grace status, and then you yourself can do the coup de grace. And it's a nice little hidden detail on Capcom's part, even though it's completely unnecessary, because you yourself can just initiate the coup de grace easily. And I'm honestly amazed that Fascinator managed to discover such a system, because he discovered it on accident. And this system doesn't just apply to your corresponding AI partner, it also applies to other AI partners as well. Like, for instance, in Chapter 1 of Jake's campaign, where you connect with Chris and Pierce, you can actually get Chris or Pierce to participate in a combo attack with you. Which is very interesting. But I'll have to demonstrate that mechanic when I go to those other campaigns, because I wasn't able to do it successfully in this campaign here. So right now we're coming across the final boss of Leon's campaign. This is a really awesome final boss. The only problem with this final boss is the cutscenes that allow the zombies to move, and some of the hitboxes on Derek's attacks can be really bad. And I actually died on this fight because he did an attack I had never seen before. He actually has an instant kill grab move if you stand directly in front of him, like in the middle of the battleground. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong in this fight. So he can damage you, but watch out for the lightning rod right there. You have to use the lightning rod to finish off Derek, but while the lightning rod is inside of a zombie, it can actually damage you. Like, it gives a warning though. You'll see a bit of sparks come out of the lightning rod, and then the lightning will actually come, and you gotta keep your distance if you want to avoid taking damage. So the way this fight works is, you gotta shoot the glowing parts of Simmons in order to destroy one of his legs. And the first introduction to the boss fight, it's kind of rigid on how you're supposed to handle it. You have to shoot one of the legs off, and then wait for it to regenerate, and then you have to destroy 2 legs in rapid succession in order to get Simmons to grab the lightning rod. And this right here is one of the unique quick time events you can do against Simmons, but it only works if you have a incendiary grenade. If you don't have an incendiary grenade, you can still dodge it, but you won't be able to do this moment right now. This is so cool. This is what happens when you save your resources. This is what it feels like to save your resources. Like, a lot of the weapons on this game feel like they serve a purpose, and the incendiary grenade just then definitely served a purpose at being able to destroy his leg. But I know that Simmons is going to grab the lightning rod because I destroyed 2 legs in rapid succession, and this is where the cutscene is going to play, and I'm having to position myself really far away from the zombies and immediately roll. You have to roll away quickly before the zombies attack you. And now you're going to have to place the lightning rod inside the zombies and then destroy one of the legs in order to force Simmons to go after the lightning rod. So when his weak spots are black, you cannot damage them. They're completely armored. So just damage them when they're glowing. And the Magnum is so good against Simmons. Like, look at that. I destroyed 2 legs very fast. And you don't have to use the lightning rod for the legs. You can just destroy a certain number of legs and put him into the near-death status, then use the lightning rod on him. And that'll actually work. And right now he's doing his projectile attack. So he fires about 6 projectiles at you. Sometimes 5. So you gotta stay on the move. And then another attack that he can do is he can use his pincers against you. You gotta make sure you're not staying too close to Simmons, but don't stay too far away from him because he'll sometimes do this one pincer attack that has a really bad hitbox. And I don't know how it downed me because I didn't even see the pincer coming near me. Like I said, there are some weird hitboxes with this fight. But just make sure you're not standing directly in front of him when you're trying to use the lightning rod, because there's a chance that he will do his instant kill grab move or that he'll hit you with his pincer. He's doing the range attack again. I need to stay on the move. And there we go, I've destroyed one of the legs, and I know he's going to go for the lightning rod. And I believe I have destroyed enough legs to allow him to go into the near-death status. There we go. So when he goes into the near-death status, but the lightning rod is inside of the zombie, you got to aim for his head right now. Shoot his head. You cannot shoot the head until the lightning rod is inside of a zombie. Because if you do not place the lightning rod inside of a zombie, he'll regenerate his head. Also, this is something you can also do as well. You can place the lightning rod directly inside of his head, but I don't know how to consistently do it, because I've only been able to do it once, and I was playing as Helena. But every subsequent attempt afterwards, every time I tried to place a lightning rod inside of his head, the characters would just jab the lightning rod inside of an invisible spot, and it wouldn't connect with Derek, and it wouldn't give me the prompt afterwards, so I don't know how to consistently make it work. So just do the method I just did, place it inside of a zombie, and then shoot his head.
Head for the chopper.
And that is the end of that boss fight. That is a really fun boss fight with a lot of diversity to it with how you're supposed to handle it. That's the same case with Sadler. Like, this boss doesn't have a lot of options compared to Sadler, but it has just enough to make it feel very diverse. And now, we are going to do the classic Resident Evil thing, which defines a Resident Evil game, of finishing off the final boss using a power weapon, because we're going to be using the rocket launcher against him. You don't have to use the rocket launcher. You will get a medal if you actually finish off Simmons without using the rocket launcher. But why would you want to ignore a classic Resident Evil thing? I don't know. And here he comes. He's on his last legs. He's going to try to use his pincer on you, but we're going to kill him with the rocket launcher, and that will be the end of this campaign. So thank you all for watching my Resident Evil 6 No Life Cube Lost walkthrough on No Hope difficulty for Leon's campaign. And you take care now.